Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tammy Patzer.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Gina Gardiner. Let me tell you about Gina. Gina is an international #1 best-selling author of multiple books, and today I really want to focus on one, and that one is called Thriving, Not Surviving. But she's also written a #1 bestseller called Chariots on Fire. And Gina is not only an international best-selling author, she's a motivational speaker, empowerment and relationship coach, and she has more than 30 years experience in helping people transform their lives by recognizing their true worth. She helps them feel more confident so that anyone can achieve a life of fulfillment. She ran an award-winning school for more than 20 years. And get this, she did this mostly from a wheelchair. Think about that. Her gift of the disability, she saw it, think about that, she saw it as a gift. And it actually gave Gina this unique approach to leadership and empowerment. So in the book, Thriving, Not Surviving, she offers insights, principles, and strategies that are the underpinnings of all that success. She's also the founder of Thrive Together Tribe membership group. And here's her big mission. She wants to positively impact the lives of 1 million people by 2023. And she's well on her way. Just think, Gina is someone who can help others become their authentic selves, to recognize and own their unique, genuine power that we all have within us, and have the courage and the power to feel self-confident, to find purpose, and of course, to have that wonderful, fulfilling life. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show.
I'm really excited too, because not only, think about it. You have this background that you're a very successful woman. You speak internationally and you have the best-selling books. What is a little more background about your latest book, Thriving, Not Surviving?
One of the things that I've become aware of working with people is that they come actually from 5 different strands, if you like. And those strands are that they don't believe in themselves, that they lack self-worth, often when they're incredibly successful people. And yet that success is never going to be enough because they don't feel good about them. So for me, a starting point is around belief, and that's one of the secret pathways in the book. The second is around relationships. And many of my clients come because they've had a range of relationships which have been difficult, or their very significant relationship isn't actually as satisfying as they would like it, or they're lonely. And at the heart of that is the relationship they have with them. Because every relationship we have with other people is a reflection of the relationship we have with us. Because if you feel good about yourself and you really value who you are, you're not going to let anybody bully you or treat you badly, are you?
No.
The third
makes a lot of sense.
Is that about success, and success and beliefs are very, very closely tied. And so looking at what is the difference between a person who achieves great success and sustains it throughout their life, and those who either feel that they've never achieved what they want to, or they have success and then sabotage it. the fourth strand, people dealing with transitions in life. And, there are three constants, aren't there? Death, taxes, and change. And yet we often find changes, leaving home, marriage, having children, getting a new job, redundancy, retirement, bereavement, disability. All of those things create changes in our lives, and they are a struggle very often. And the last is that of purpose and fulfillment, because I have had worked with so many people who've got all of the trappings of success and think, is this it? And so helping people recognize that living a life with purpose and knowing what your purpose is can lead to great fulfillment. And so I'm passionate about helping people step into their power. And although Chariots had some of the strategies and quite a lot of my story, I've moved on since then, and I wanted to have something that encapsulated in all of those. So it's really like a sat nav to life. So wherever you are on your journey, the book has got something for you.
So with your journey, it's interesting because if you look at what you're doing today, you have the membership tribe called Thriving Together. And can you tell me a little bit more about that, since that's about what's going on right now? How does that membership work?
Well, I've launched the membership group for a number of reasons. I mean, there's huge amounts of research which say if you want to make a sustained change, surround yourself with positive, like-minded people. And so that's one of the reasons for creating a group where people who want to move on, who want to take action and really make the most of their lives, can not only get support from me and my team, but also from one another. But what I realize is that so many people, again, successful businesswomen, entrepreneurs, people who are in the corporate world, often feel that they don't have a voice, that they're not seen and validated. And I wanted to create a place where people could feel safe, that it would be non-judgmental, that they would be provided with the support and challenge, because this is about moving people forward, and a place to share their vulnerability and know it was safe, but also celebrate success. And so I created the Thrive Together tribe, and it has a number of components designed so that it will suit people. Won't necessarily do the whole lot as it is, but they will cherry pick what works for them. So within the Thrive tribe membership, there is actually a very structured sequential program for personal development, which takes people through not only the 5 pathways, but for me, the underpinning principles of things like perspective and looking at motive and the power of language, and also the connecting themes. Things like, the quality of your thinking affects the quality of your life. So most people don't think about the way they think. And research shows that 95% of our thoughts and our words are habitual. And so once you start to be mindful about how you think, then all sorts of possibilities open up. So there's a wealth of material in there. There's a Facebook group where people can get, in real time support for what they are doing. There are interactive internet coaching sessions, visiting speakers, and a whole lot more. We've got a themed journal that goes along with it, and there are activity books which go along. But people can do as much or as little as they want to.
Wow, that sounds like a really cool place, because I really resonate with that idea that many people feel like they've not been seen or heard or valued. And I think the world seems to be moving into a place now where people are looking for that type of a support system. So you're right on the cutting edge of that. Now, you've also been working on, you have a podcast, and then you're also working on a TV show. Can you tell me more about your podcast and TV show?
The podcasts cover a whole range of themes. And if you look at the 5 pathways, they support those. They add extra information. They add extra body, if you like. And we've looked at all sorts of themes. Self-sabotage, looking at how you can manage your time. There's just a huge wealth, and I'm adding to it all the time. The TV series, 13 parts, looks at some of the themes, but some of them directly. Things like, the greatness of gratitude, how you can recalibrate your brain by recognizing and being grateful for things. The power of forgiveness, not only of other people, but of yourself. And so many people are holding on to the hurts from the past, which really color their now and their future. And looking at, if you are suffering from stress and anxiety, how can you dig yourself out of that dark hole? And then towards the end of the series, we start to look at people's spiritual journey. And I believe that all of this is preparation for people recognizing that actually we're all spiritual beings. We are all connected. And I believe that for many people, for many women, that what I'm doing is preparation to take their role, their power as spiritual matriarchs, people who can make a difference. And the Dalai Lama talked about the fact that it would be the Western world of women who will save the world. And whilst I believe that I don't think this is particularly gender specific in terms of having the capacity to affect change and to make a difference, I do think as women we are probably for the first time in history truly stepping into our power and recognizing that person by person you can make a difference, but actually you can then affect a whole family, a community, and then the world at large. And so that's my mission.
I think that you really are right on target, because I found in the projects that I've been doing in the last year with the women innovators, leaders, makers, and givers, that's exactly what is happening. Women are stepping up and starting to take charge and allow themselves to be more powerful and to be seen and to be heard. So that's really great. So your podcast and show is called Genuinely You. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it is.
And you actually have the podcast, the TV show, and the website that people can go visit. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your story, because it is a very unique story, and you actually learned or had to learn how to walk twice. Yes. So can you explain more about your story and how it brought you to be part of this huge, big mission that you're on now?
Okay. I became the deputy head or deputy principal of a large school when I was in my late 20s, very young, very green, didn't know what I didn't know. And I was appointed to be the catalyst for change. And I'd been there about 6 months. It got to half term in February, and I went skiing. And I had a really serious ski accident. I'd had a fall the day before, and I'd said to my friends, I need to get my confidence back. And so I'd just done some gentle skiing, met them for lunch, and they said, we found a great new run. And so off we went, got to the top of the chairlift, and they led, I followed. We turned a corner, and they recognized they'd gone the wrong way. And we were at the top of the Schindlergratz, which is the most difficult black run in St. Anton. And this drop was steep and full of moguls. Now, your viewers and listeners may not know what a mogul is. It's where the wind and the weather carve out a lump in the snow. And they can be a couple of inches, but these were 6 foot tall. And so the whole of the run, which was very steep and incredibly scary, were these great big mounds of snow that you had to ski, turn on the top and slip down, and then go in between the moguls and then turn and do the same, coming back the other way. Now, I'd done black runs before. Their ski runs are graded from baby slopes, then blue, red, green, and black are the most difficult. But I'd never tackled anything like this, and I have to say I was pretty terrified. I managed to ski the first third, and then I fell because I kept on leaving it so late because I was frightened of turning, that I got to the edge, and then it was powder snow, and I fell quite a long way. Excuse me, go to cough. Managed to get my ski back and ski down to where the rest of the party were waiting. And so took my skis off. We were all sitting on the mogul, rather like elves sitting on our own toadstool. Beautiful day, very hot, and the top of my mogul gave way. And I started to fall, and because there was nowhere to land, I just kept bouncing and falling. The last thing I remember is hearing a scream, and everything went black.
Wow.
I came to, I have no idea how long, and eventually the rest skied to me, and I was determined that I wasn't going to let them call the blood wagon, so I managed to get my way. I'd actually fallen quite a couple of 100 feet, so there wasn't a great deal of the run left to do. I managed to get home. The journey was horrendous, and my mum took one look at me and she carted me off to hospital, and they said I'd got a concussion and I had trapped a nerve in my neck, to take it easy. So on the Monday I went into school. Apparently I wasn't making much sense. No change there. I was sent home. And it took me a few weeks to get over it, and I was back at school. And I was cleared to go on the borough ski party with 150 school children. I was the deputy leader. Skied all week, but became more and more like Quasimodo as the week went on. I was struggling. And it got to the last afternoon. The children had done their medals and their races. We got back to the hotel, and I couldn't do any more. And I said to my colleagues, I've got to go and lie on the bed. I managed to get onto the top bunk. It was not a posh hotel, I have to say. And I suddenly couldn't move my right side. I was completely paralysed. I was frightened, but I didn't want to shout because I didn't want to frighten the children. And I had to wait until people arrived, which felt like a very long time. All hell broke loose then, and I was carted off to hospital, and I had treatment in Geneva and then back in England, and finally made my way back to school. Now, I wasn't right, but I was right enough to manage school and not a lot else. Then fast forward till 1996. By this time I was struggling. I'd really resisted using a wheelchair to get round school. I had a very spread side. And I can remember it came to a head one day when it was the summer holidays, and friends and I went to a very famous gardens called Wisley. I love gardens. And I could manage to walk from the car to the kiosk where they took the tickets. But by then I'd had it, and I wouldn't let them hire a wheelchair. I was so pig-headed that I sat in the car park and they went round the gardens. And it was then I realised that actually, this was silly. Events actually took things out of my hands, and I was hospitalised a couple of days later because I was very poorly. And when I came out, I was in 4 months. And when I came out, I had to use a wheelchair. Now, I could still walk, and I didn't use the wheelchair around the house. And I used it at school to get from my office to classrooms, and I'd walk in the classrooms and I'd walk in the hall. Fast forward to 1996, it was 3 weeks before the end of the school term, the school holidays, the summer term, and I was really looking forward to the long break. I was out in the garden, I was planting up some seeds, and I sneezed, and I felt something ping in my back. I knew I'd done something quite desperate, but I kept going until the last day of term. And on the first day of the holiday, I was rushed into hospital, and it was a burst disc in my back. The operation resulted in failed back surgery syndrome, which meant if I put my left foot to the floor, then I simply fainted. So I had lots of nerve blocks, and by 18 months later, I could walk to the end of my little garden. And the walking was very slowly improving. Once again, I got to the end of the summer term, which was exactly 2 years later. The last day of term in the evening, we had a staff meal, which was lovely. I got home and I suddenly felt sick. And as I was being sick, I felt something ping in my back. And I ruptured another disc.
Wow.
Hospitalized straight away. And when they removed that, again, complications, and I found I couldn't stand. But within 5 days of coming out of hospital, 4 or 5 days, I was back at school. Because if I stayed at home, I was incredibly disabled. If I couldn't, if somebody hadn't left out a glass or a cup and filled the kettle or filled the glass, I couldn't manage to do it for myself. But at school, my head, my mouth works, you can tell that, my hands, my brain, I could get on and I could do something I loved, be useful, and actually not feel disabled at all. If I needed something lifted, carried, there were people there to do it. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. I could be at home and focus on everything I couldn't do, or I could go into school and focus on what I could. And that's been one of the principles of my life. Whatever's going on, rather than focus what you can't, focus on what you can.
Wow, that's quite a journey that you had. And so today, are you able to walk today, or do you still have to go back and forth?
In 2004, which is actually when I left headship because bits were dropping off, and I was given the advice that if I didn't stop working the very long hours that I did, that I would be housebound and not able to drive and not able to work. I had an internal spinal stimulator fitted. Are you familiar with a TENS machine?
I've heard of it.
So an electrical impulse is put through the nerve and it blocks the pain. And I've got one inside, and I've got in my tummy, I've got a battery, and I turn it on with what looks like a TV zapper. Amazing. And it's taken a long time. My mobility is now the very best it's been since 1996. And I can walk around the house and garden. I can do short distances, but for anything else, I still have to use a wheelchair. I
see. So when you talk about the learning how to walk twice, is that whole journey that where you hurt yourself in the skiing accident, and then later you ended up having to learn again after those surgeries? Well,
actually, when you think about it, it was 3 times because I'd never counted. You just pointed out I didn't ever count the being paralysed and to walk. That didn't take very long, and so I discounted it. No, it's after the 2 back surgeries because that took such a long time and such a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't counted.
So with that type of adversity, where I mean, number one, you had quite an exciting life to begin with, skiing and all the high level skiing and everything. So you were very athletic and obviously very, very smart to be able to teach and to do all that. With the fact that happened to you, how did that bring you to today, and how did that make you a better leader? Because now you help all of these people develop their leadership skills, and you speak and you coach people. What about that being wheelchair bound and having to struggle through all of the pain and everything, do you think really helped you become who you are today?
I'm absolutely no doubt that that's the case. And for me, it's 2 very separate strands, although they're interconnected. Looking at the leadership thing, I couldn't physically get into my classrooms. Even if I could get the wheelchair through the door, I couldn't maneuver around. And so one of the things for me is I was absolutely determined that my children and my staff were going to get the very best education, the best learning experience that I could provide. And so at that time, and even now, it's very common that head teachers will go in and observe and train in the classrooms while things are going on. I couldn't do that. So I had to find a different way. And one of the huge gifts that came out of that was recognizing that if you want to really empower people, they have to take responsibility for their own performance, their own emotional well-being, their words, their actions or lack of them, and the way in which they do everything. And I think it's very common for people who are trying to develop others to say, you have to do it this way, you have to do it my way. What I did was to create an absolute shared understanding of what the expectations were. And that started when people came for interview. For example, this is a two-way process. Don't come here if you are moody, if you're not a good team member, if you don't want to work hard, if you don't want to learn, if you don't want to support other teachers in their learning, not the right place for you. We want people who can do all of those things and do it with enthusiasm. So over time, my team already arrived knowing that that was expected of them. And the next thing, and I've used these principles I work with organizations doing strategic business development, that it doesn't matter what industry, it works. So part of it is recognizing and helping people have the language to know, what does excellence look like in the context of this organization or this classroom or this manufacturing business or this hotel? And then breaking it down to its component parts. So looking at, if we've got excellence, well, you're the leading professional, whether you're the toilet cleaner or you're the CEO. What does excellence look like in the context of your position within the organization? What does it look like within the team? What does it look like for the whole organization? And creating a very shared understanding of what that looked like, and then holding people to account. But doing it in a way which was developmental. So it wasn't about telling people that they were no good. It was about encouraging them to review their own performance and then giving them the tools with which to improve, which was the second part of it, really. It didn't start out structured and sequential, but in the end, my organization had a program of structured sequential development from the moment people arrived right the way through. And they did this voluntarily in their own time because they valued it so much. And to start with, I set the agenda and I did the training and the support. But once they got to 3 years into their teaching, then they were very much part of the agenda. And we made it fun. We ran on English Sweets chocolate. They were done after school. There was always chocolate there. I'm a great believer in chocolate, and people really valued it. And so I think the two things together, taking responsibility and having support, which is about helping people grow and expand. One of my clients called me a cross between a hand holder and an arse kicker. And one of, I think, the things that I've been so privileged and humbled about is when people have said to me, you've been able to show me that wasn't right, that could be better, but in a way that made me feel I could do it and that I wanted to. And that's really important to me.
That's a gift, to be able to work with people and empower them so that they feel good about it, but also to help them make these massive transformational changes. Yeah. So who do you think would really benefit from your Thriving, Not Surviving program?
I think for the most part it's going to be women probably aged between 30, 35 and 60. Women who have a level of success, that entrepreneurs, business people, corporates, who are ready to take action, who actually want their life to be even better. That it doesn't have to be dreadful, it doesn't have to be lots of problems, but this is around people who want to get the best out of life for themselves and for the people they care about and the people they work with. People who are ready to step into being genuinely them.
I'm ready.
Love to have you. Absolutely love to have you. So
I just wanted to ask you, now you have the TV show, you have the podcast, you're in England or London or
I'm in Colchester, just outside Colchester, the oldest town in the UK, Roman origin.
So can you work with people all over the world?
Oh, yes. I mean, the wonders of Zoom and Skype and telephone. I've got many clients I've never met. Feel I know them very well, but we've never physically met. So it's just a question of working out the time zones, that's all.
So when you work with someone, what might that process look like, and what would the expectation of time commitment be when someone is working with you?
We're not talking about the Thrive Tribe now, we're talking about one-on-one.
Yeah,
yes?
One-on-one, right.
Generally speaking, people sign up for a program, 3 months, 6 months, depending on what they want to do. And sessions, we work around their schedule, what works for them. So sessions can be anything from half an hour to an hour, depending on what people want to do. And the frequency is going to be dependent upon their schedule rather than mine. Inevitably, you need to have something that gives a bit of momentum, because if you do them too far apart, then it's quite hard to maintain that momentum. And I think for people, particularly those who want a one-on-one, they want quick results. They want to actually see a benefit of what they do.
Right.
And clients report that they see a benefit even from the first session. Because part of that is clarifying with the client what's really going on, what they want. And for many people, they know what they don't want, but they're not quite sure what they do. So it's a very powerful session. And so this is very much tailored to the individual need. It's all about them rather than about me.
Right. Well, that's what I think it needs to be. So people can either work with you one-on-one, yes. They can become part of the Thrive Tribe.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that is that a separate membership and it includes a Facebook community? Is that how that works?
The Thrive Tribe is a monthly membership. There's a subscription for that.
Okay.
And then what they get is they get a starter pack with a book, a journal, an activity book, and things along the way. And those the journal, the themed journal, which follows the videos. There are 7 units of 7 videos, plus subsidiary videos that are timed to drop in on a weekly basis, so people aren't overwhelmed. Then they get access to the library of other resources, podcasts, videos, all sorts, which I'm adding to all the time. There's a group interactive coaching twice a month on the internet, and visiting speakers, and those will be recorded, so if people can't make them, then they can look at them in their own time. They have access to me and my team 24/7 through Facebook group, and also they have the support of the other people within the tribe.
Wow. So of all of the things that people come to you for, what would you say is the number one issue that people come to you for help with?
They come bringing all sorts of things. But when it boils down to one thing, I believe ultimately that comes to belief. If you believe in yourself, if you believe in what you're doing, if you trust your intuition, then life expands exponentially. And so if you look at relationships, It's all about how you believe about yourself. Abundance, it's all about your beliefs around what is abundance and about money. If you're talking about, can I manage change? Will I survive being bereaved or being disabled? I've been redundant. What do I believe about myself when I'm not being the director or the CEO or the secretary? Everything in the end, I think, boils down to our beliefs about the world, which drive our emotions, they drive our actions, they drive our language, pretty well anything. So that for me is number one.
Well, I think you're right, because I mean, everything, it is a way of believing. And then I think you said something early in our conversation that really struck me, is that it's about thinking and about how we think. I agree with you. I don't think a lot of people put a lot of thought into how they think, and they hear this about beliefs and mindset and everything, but it almost has become a cliche, because people don't always stop and think, well, really, what does that mean to me? And how am I thinking?
Yes.
So I think that, again, you're right on target. So again, you can
Can I just ask if I can tell you a little story? Because I think it actually demonstrates this beautifully.
Okay.
I'd done a lot of training. I was a qualified coach before I became, while I was a head. And when I left headship, I did all sorts of other training, including NLP. And having done all of that, I decided to go and see lots of other people talk. And I took myself off to a motivational course run by Tony Robbins. And I arrived and there were 10,000 people on the course. And part of that was the fire walk. And for those of you that don't know, that's where you walk in bare feet on hot coals. And if you've got the right mindset, you don't get burnt. Now, at that time, I could stagger a few steps. And so I was absolutely thrilled, with help, to have walked over the hot coals and survived. And as I sat down, the guy behind me was a double amputee. And he tipped himself up on his hands and he walked on those hot coals on his hands. Now, I'll be forever grateful to that man. He doesn't know who I am and I haven't got a clue what his name is. But he really taught me an incredible lesson. He changed my beliefs about me. In the morning of that day, Anthony Robbins had been talking about a course that was going to take place in California. And I'd completely dismissed it, saying, I'm never going to manage in my wheelchair on my own. I can't do it. And I'd simply dismissed it as not possible. Now, I travelled England working, but I always had a driver pick me up at home and take me to the place. So I was never really on my own. I watched that guy walk hot coals on his hands, and I thought to myself, I'm never going to self-limit again. If he can do that, then there's nothing that I am going to allow myself to say I can't, unless it truly is physically impossible. And so that night, I booked my ticket and I booked my flight. Since then, I've been to America to do all sorts of training. I've travelled the world, and I am grateful to that guy. And that was all a shift of belief. And I would say to anybody who's listening to this, it's time to actually do an audit of your beliefs. Those that are empowering you, keep them and celebrate them. But if you've got beliefs that are holding you back, the chances are they probably aren't even yours. They've been installed by parents or teachers or peers, and you've never questioned them. And it's time to question them. So thanks for letting me say that.
That is phenomenal, and we're going to wrap up here. But Gina, what a phenomenal conversation we've had today, and I've really enjoyed learning all about you. So if somebody wants to learn more about you, where would you suggest they look for you?
If you go onto the website, www.genuinely-u.com, then they'll find all of the links and everything's on there. So www.genuinely-u.com.
Okay, great. Gina, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. And I'm sending my love to all of your listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tammy Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.